And this may sound like a really simple challenge, Jeff, but the first one was garbage cans. We didn't bring garbage cans on over. We figured, oh, we're in this bright, new, shiny building. So the garbage is like sit at your desk. And then when you're done doing whatever it is you're doing, table it all and then go walk your garbage to a more central location around several different areas within the building. Our employees just said, can you give us garbage cans? We got them garbage cans.
Love is a strategy.
Hello and welcome to Love as a Strategy, a podcast that brings humanity to the workplace. We're here to talk about all things business, but we want to tackle pieces and topics that most business leaders shy away from. We believe that humanity and love should be at the center of every successful business. I am your host, Jeff Ma, and as always, I'm here to have conversations and hear stories about how real people and real businesses operate. This season, I'm focusing on change, something that everyone, I believe, is going through. So today I'm joined by Brad Fideli, the Director of Human Resources at NTN Bearing Corporation. And Brad brings more than 25 years of experience across manufacturing, recruiting, and HR leadership, including some deep time spent in lean manufacturing environments. His career actually started on the shop floor while he was in college, and over the years, he's led HR work across everything from talent development and employee relations to compliance and organizational change. Brad is also currently pursuing his MBA at the University of Iowa, which makes this conversation about change especially timely. I'm looking forward to exploring how his experiences have shaped the way he thinks about people, leadership, navigating change inside organizations. Brad, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing today?
Jeff, I'm doing well. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here. Really look forward to our conversation.
Me too. And I have to ask you a starter question. While the rest of this goes however we want, I always start with the same question. So that question is, Brad, what is your passion and how did you find it?
My passion, if I look at that through a work lens, how did I find my way into human resources? Jeff, an absolute accident. And I mean that honestly. When I was in school and graduated in 1999. So yes, had the opportunity to party like it was 1999. That was fun. But with graduation, I had no clue what I was going to do. I went into school to be a lawyer, had everything primed up to be a lawyer. And lo and behold, once I took some classes late in my schooling there at the University of Illinois, found out this wasn't for me. And so I graduate and I'm going, what am I going to do? Well, I fell into a role as an executive recruiter and found that I really enjoyed talking to people. And I also found when I took on my first field HR role that I got to blend my love for talking to people with some legal elements. And lo and behold, my career took off. So that passion could be described as I fell into my career, which has been a wonderful career for 20 plus years. But yet that's what my work life looks like. In terms of my personal life, the thing that drives me, I love to cook. And in particular, mainly cooking outside. So here in Chicago, when it's cold, a little bit down right now because I can't be outside, whether that's at a smoker or a grill or trying something different, such as let's deep fry a chicken or something along those lines.
So if I'm coming over right now and you got to make me you got to impress me with your best dish, what are you making?
Oh, that's a great question. Inside, I'm going to choose some level of a pasta. So it could be a smoked chicken type pasta meal. But if I'm outside, it's going to just be, a steak.
Nice.
I'm gonna cook you up a really nice steak. Nothing too crazy or particular about it, but I'm gonna make you feel welcome in my house. We're going to cook a nice steak, enjoy a good glass of wine, some
right.
vegetables, and good
Nice.
conversation.
Well, I have you on record, so I will be over shortly. And you
7 o'clock
heard it.
this evening, right,
Yeah,
Jeff?
yeah, I'll be there. Brad, there's so much I want to talk about. I think HR is always this realm of like everybody has HR, everyone deals with HR, everyone has their own stories with HR, but not everyone works in HR. And I think there's two very different sides of that equation. And then there's the season I'm in talking about change. I think I've been bringing on guests to talk about changes that they've gone through, that the organization has gone through, and changes that they've had to lead others through. And I feel like HR, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit and hear maybe some anecdote stories or examples or just, successes and failures around this, whenever change happens in an organization, it impacts people quite a bit, obviously. And kind of the season we're in is talking about how the people element of change is often missed or not considered enough, and changes are rolled out like they're the next best thing. And lo and behold, people don't come along. They don't agree. They don't like it. They get, and you having gone through change, but also, dealing with humans in change. I'd love to hear your perspective of like what that's like. And yeah, anyways, very broad questioning here, but start us off a little bit about like your take from an HR perspective around change going through an organization, large scale change.
Yeah, large scale change is hard. And it's hard because of several different facets. I feel that when we look at it through the lens of the people, it's making sure that you stay in touch with what they're going through, uh, connecting with the challenges that they're facing, and trying to remove obstacles any way that you possibly can to help them adjust to what they're going through as part of the change journey. I'll give you a great example. At my company, we recently moved into our new corporate headquarters. We used to be based in a 4-story building, had about 200 employees in that building. But post COVID, we returned on a limited schedule, more of that hybrid sort of schedule. And it really worked for us. So we decided that let's downsize into a smaller building, smaller location, 1 floor. And so we did that. And that occurred in September. Huge change, right? We all had to go through the process of eliminating paperwork that we weren't using. We had to change how we were possibly interacting with our fellow employees. And in fact, we had to get used again, Jeff, to being around one another, as when you're on 4 stories and you're on different floors and you're working hybrid, sometimes it felt like a ghost town, like there just wasn't anyone in that building.
Mm-hmm.
So what did we do? We created a change team that was focused on communication. We had 3 different events or teams, let's call it, that focused on making sure the employees were aware of what was going on. So the building decommissioning team is a prime example. And what that did when we had those 3 teams, we had our business communication team. It felt like everyone was aware of what we were doing. So when we got to the building, it felt so comfortable.
Mm.
And now, post a couple of months, what I do and what I tell my team to do is that just go around and talk. Just be there, be in front of the employees. Hey, how's it going? What's a challenge you're faced with? And this may sound like a really simple challenge, Jeff, but the first one was garbage cans. We didn't bring garbage cans on over. We figured, oh, we're in this bright new shiny building, so the garbage is like sit at your desk, and then when you're done doing whatever it is you're doing, table it all and then go walk your garbage to a more central location around several different areas within the building. Our employees just said, can you give us garbage cans? We got them garbage cans. So funny enough, when talking to some executives about that, never in a million years did we ever think that we were going to put a meeting schedule on our calendars that would say talking garbage. But sure enough, that's exactly what we did to be able to try to meet our employees and the concerns that they had. So my point here is this: get with your employees, communicate that change, create teams whenever you can around the elements of change. So in our example, it was building decommissioning, the new building itself and what to expect, as well as also then policies and updating those policies. So those were our three teams in particular. And just communicate. And then once the change is done, be there. Don't walk away and think, okay, it's done. Time to move on to the next. Walk around, talk to folks, set up skip level meetings. Just get to know what's going on.
You had a lot in there. I'm going to try to pick at little parts of it at a time. But one of the things that stood out to me was this idea. I love this idea you made different, I guess, committees or teams to handle different pieces of it. One thing that I always worry about is this idea of change comms. I think, especially in certain organizations, comms is sometimes a struggle, and for various reasons. I won't say, and I don't know how it was with your organization, but can you share a little bit about how you keep your comms more intentional and more connected and real, like and more received, right? I think sometimes when change comes, it's like, I think people have a healthy amount of skepticism over how comms come and how they're shared. The big change comes in an email or something, and there's eye rolls, there's gossip, there's like chatter, and there's all these other things, all these things that can happen. How do you manage that? How have you seen that successful or unsuccessful when it comes to comms?
Yeah, and that communications are difficult because yes, you typically will want to just put it in the email and blast it off. I'm gonna come back to our team structure here and what we did, Jeff, with our move to the new headquarters. And with the communications team, we had 3-4 people on that team in particular. And when we got together, of course, we said, here are the top 6-10 things that all the employees want to hear about and the rhythm of when we're going to send things out. We recognized that's not going to really win over hearts and minds. It's just going to be another communication email that hits and probably gets sent to the side. And is it really going to drive what we're hoping for? Mm-hmm. So in particular, we said, okay, let's go on out and talk. Let's get to some feedback from the employees. So we went around and we talked. We sent out surveys. What do you want to hear about? We also asked, like, how do you want to hear it? We couldn't get away from email communication. It is a part of how we communicated as a business, but we also brought it to life. And what I mean by that is an example when it was, we want to see what the building and the setting and the environment is going to look like. So when we sent off the email that said, here's the color patterns and the flooring and what the offices will look like, we also put the sketches together, large sketches like you see when major sports teams are indicating, here's our new building stadium we're going to be moving into, right? All of those sketches, we put about 6, 7, 8 of them in one of our training rooms so people can interact with them. They can go down there and see what it looked like. They could pick up a flooring sample and see what the floor would look like. And on top of it, we did something to where it was like, here are going to be the chairs that we choose from. There's maybe 6 of them that you can deliberate as to which one's the best. And we had a survey. So go downstairs, sit in the chairs, figure out which one works best. And from there, that turned into the chairs that we use at our new building. So my point there is, bring those communications to life. Find ways to make them interactive. And in this example, it worked for us to where it was a way for employees to not only hear from us that here's what the building's going to look like, here's what the offices are going to look like, but now don't just take our word for it. Go downstairs and look, get a chance to see. And on top of it, we then, when it was all said and done and built and put together and ready for close to move in, it was, hey, it's an open house. Come now and see all of it, right? So, Jeff, my point here is this: bring your communications to life whenever you possibly can. And second of all, make sure that you're deliberate in your communications, specifically around what the employees are asking you for, as opposed to thinking you know all the answers.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think you also solved, I guess, another big like problem in change is that people often feel in large organizational change that people feel like that they weren't specifically considered or included in the decision. And by doing that, it sounds like people had a chance to give their feedback or vote or in many ways be a part of the process and feel kind of not like it's done to them, but that they get to be a part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it showed as quite popular, let's call it, with the organization, because again, when we are now in that new building, you still hear rumblings of that. Oh, we really appreciate that we had the chance to be a part of it. So that interactive, bring to life concept is so important.
Yeah, I've worked with a specific group of people who, we for the audience listening, a building move obviously is a big deal, but you'll also be surprised at how much of a bigger deal it can be, right? Like people really like having to move or change environments is typically going to come with loss of a routine, loss of, like people will grieve their change whether you realize it or not. I worked with another group who made this like super smart and straightforward decision to like move one group from one building to another building because it just made the most sense, like on paper, and it turned into one of like the greatest uprisings and like one of the great like every people were grabbing torches and pitchforks and like and it's like all because of the community. It's all because of how they kind of framed and positioned it. So it's awesome how you approached it. I wanted to actually ask about that other part, the other end of this that you said. I love something you said about not just doing the change, but also being there afterwards, or like kind of sticking around and making sure. Like, can you talk a little bit more about like okay, the building move has happened. What are maybe some of the things that didn't go so well, or maybe some of the things that are still being talked about, and what does being there look like for that?
And so great question. I feel if I had the chance to go back and maybe do some things differently, some of them could have been around having some policies in place, ready to go when we had moved in. I knew that, if I were to guess, there was maybe about 6 policies that were pretty critical that needed to be updated before we moved in. But there was also maybe 2 or 3, Jeff, that we could have gone and really put some mind share to and had those up and running before we moved in. In particular, one of them was like, how do we deal with visitors who come to the suite? A little bit different from where we went to a space that we own to now being a tenant, and how folks now are visitors, whether that's applicants or visitors from a different NTN company, whatever it might be, right? We just didn't really think through that all that well. And so, you had complications of, folks just kind of standing around and you're wondering, is that person supposed to be in our suite? Who is that? And so we could have done a better job there. The other thing too is that we have tons of visitors who come to our headquarters from all of our different locations that we have here in the US. I make it sound like we've got a ton. We have about 8. But their regular presence occurs at our headquarters. And so we didn't think, well, maybe we should get some of those folks some entry badges so they can get into the building when they come. Instead, it was they may show up at like 6 p.m. when most folks are gone, our doors are locked, and they're sitting out there knocking on the door, hello, hello. And so my point here is that there are some things that now post change that we should have done and thought through better, but we didn't necessarily prioritize that. And now we're struggling because life continues, right? Change is happening all the time. So we've got this project we're working on, we've got that project we're working on, and now that we've settled into the building, we're more focused on what do we need to do to close out our fiscal year per se. And it's going, oh yeah, we've got that policy we need to get to, and oh yeah, we didn't get to it. And oh yeah, I just got that call from such and such over at such and such subsidiary who says they're going to be here on such and such a day, and we don't have the badge made up for them to be here. And oh, I don't remember how to do this, and my team's working remotely today. Ugh. So just little things like that where we could have done a better job of thinking through that. But those were also minor things in comparison to the bigger picture of our employees who are going to be sitting in that facility. So my point there is you're not going to catch everything. Don't beat yourself up when you don't catch everything, and find ways to influence it onto your roadmap when you can. But if it turns into something that has a fire, you got to put it out and go get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I took you on this journey to talk about, I guess, broad HR and change, and we really wrapped into this office move story. But I love it, and I think it may not be directly per se an HR story, but it is like a perfect I guess anecdote of change and different ways that it plays out for people. So I wanted to, I guess, close with your take more specifically on, I guess, the human side of this change. You mentioned that people, like, I guess it was a successful change by that metric. Can you talk a little bit about like what the people experience through all this was like? Where was, if I can be cheesy, like where was the love in this change, if you had to name it, or maybe where was it missing? Like basically where was the human element within this change?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. And we discussed the engagement element, right? How are we going to engage our employees through this change? And we've had a few stories here throughout our conversation that hinted at some of that. But I'm going to bring up something that we just even recently did. And the great thing about where we're at today is that our building has so many different amenities. And one of them is a more lounge type area. Think of it like a restaurant/bar type feel. And what we decided to do is kind of last minute to hold up a holiday gathering. And what we said is like, we don't want to do what we've done in the past where it was, okay, more of a sit down sort of luncheon, people just sitting with their friends and whatnot. And it just felt disengaged, right? It was a few pockets of folks here and there, not much interaction amongst folks. We said, let's use this new bright, shiny object that we happen to be in. Let's book out that lounge area and make it feel like a holiday party that you go to with your friends, where you've got your hors d'oeuvres, small food that you eat instead of this big old meal and whatnot, and more conversation, and take advantage of playing games and things of that nature with one another, such as there's the ping pong tables down there, your shuffleboard tables, things of that nature. So that's where we held our event. Hour and a half over lunch, and a chance to walk around and talk to everyone, get to know, hey, what are you doing for the holidays? And you just saw different people interacting with folks that they've never really interacted before. And it was after you were done eating, pull some folks over and play some ping pong. Myself as an example, I'm running around that area picking up the ping pong ball that's flying all over the place as we're playing. So my point there is that, to help bring the employees along, I can give a number of different examples. I chose this example because it was more of an opportunity to enjoy one another, to allow us all to be authentic, be ourselves, and enjoy one another's company in a very laid back environment, as opposed to kind of the previous sort of situations that we've done to where it's like, bring us into our old cafeteria, sit around a table, and hear a manager give a speech, and away we go. So that was it was
I've been to
it was
that.
just different. It was just different. And the vibe, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to, is
Yeah,
what we were going for. And it felt alive. And that was so important to see that people were engaged and committed to just being with one another. And that was exciting.
I love it. I love it. Brad, thank you so much for, I guess, really bringing us into the story of your office and your business and things like that. But just sharing your perspective has been really, really good for me to hear, and I'm sure the audience as well, of just a reminder of like all the little pieces that go into change and the consideration. Someone's behind it, someone's thinking about it, and someone's having to navigate that. And it sounds like you did a pretty good job on that piece specifically. So thank you so much for sharing that today.
Absolutely, Jeff. I really appreciate you giving me the time to be here with you today and just chat about things that were important to us, and talk about the people. So thank you for this opportunity.
The pleasure's mine. And thank you to the audience, of course, for still sticking with this show. I know it's changing a lot this year. Change is on the menu. I'm going to keep trying and navigating different things. One thing I loved about talking to Brad today is that I actually really liked focusing on one change story and seeing how it was navigated. So it might be a format you see going forward as well to try and experiment with. We'll see how that goes. But other than that, appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't checked it out, Love is a Business Strategy, Love is a Change Strategy. The books are still hot on shelves. And if you like what you hear, give us some feedback. We love hearing from you. And with that, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Take care.
Love is a strategy.